Resul Kuptap, the secret clerk of the Sultan, whom we know his title by his writing style. Mazaki, one of the 17th century poets, in his eulogy to Shamazade Mehmed Effendi, one of the Resul Kutaps of the era, the state official responsible for foreign affairs, emphasizes the importance and competence of his position with the phrase, "He is the Secretary of Secrets of the Sultan." Mustafa Kemal Pasha establishes a representative delegation under the chairmanship of İsmet Pasha, who returned victorious from the front, and sends them to the Lausanne negotiations. Mustafa Kemal's instructions for the negotiations were clear. No matter how much the Entente powers insist on putting into effect the Treaty of Sèvres, which they had dreamt of so many years, the Turkish delegation would never retreat from attaining the borders of the National Pact. The struggle between the parties at the table lasts for 8 months. At the end of a difficult day of negotiations, Lord Curzon, the head of the British delegation, expresses his frustration to İsmet Pasha with these words.
"Ismet, you remind me more of a music box than anything else. You play the same old song every day until we get tired of it. Sovereignty, sovereignty, sovereignty."
The government of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey establishes several executive ministries under the leadership of Mustafa Kemal Pasha to wage the War of Independence. One of them, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is inaugurated on May 2, 1920, in Ankara's governor's office, and later continued working on the upper floor of the Debt Administration Building. Bekir Samay Bey is appointed as Minister of Foreign Affairs. In spite of staff and facility constraints, the diplomatic activities of the ministry were to provide a significant support for the military struggle of the government of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey. As a matter of fact, the Agreement of Ankara, signed with France in the aftermath of the Moscow and Kars treaties, ensures the closure of another front. After the War of Independence, greater struggles lie ahead for the Ankara government at the table. There would be complicated diplomatic entanglements during the Lausanne negotiations. After the proclamation of the Republic, the control of the Straits would be regained with the Montreux Convention, and Hatay would return back to the homeland. Besides all these successes, Turkish diplomacy would manage to keep Turkey out of the Second World War, which caused the greatest destruction of all times. Yes, the new republic is adept at diplomacy, because the Turks' ability to solve problems through diplomacy is rooted deeply in history. Hadir Çelebi is mentioned as the first Resul Kutap in some archival documents dating back from 500 years ago. The office of Resul Kutap, as an institution, occupies a significant place in the historical development of our diplomacy. This office was included in the Code of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror for the first time in written form. In this period, the Resul Kutap was head of the clerks in charge of the State Correspondence Registry, working under the command of the Nişancı in the Imperial Council. This term has also been used during the Ikandi and the Abbasid periods. In the time of the Anatolian Seljuks, however, the officials in the same position were called Melikuk Kuptap. Yet the diplomacy tradition of the Turkish states dates back even further in history. The word bitig in the Orkhon inscriptions means writing and letter. Derived from the word bitig, bitigci is a name given to people who served as clerks and secretaries in the early Turkish states, covering also foreign relations. This tradition goes back to the Hun state. In fact, the clerks who crafted the letters that ambassadors carry and the text of the treaties had an important place in the state system. Chelazade Mustafa Çelebi, who became Resul Kutap after Hadir Çelebi in 1525, held this position for 10 years. Then he was promoted as Nişancı and continued in this duty for 23 years. Mustafa Çelebi also wrote some documents that shed light on this period. His contribution to the writing style of official documents, such as imperial orders, prose and letters, is also significant. The years that Çelebi served as Reis Kutap and Nişancı left a considerable mark in the Ottoman bureaucracy. Due to the nature of their duties, Reis Kutaps were chosen from well-educated and experienced civil servants with extraordinary abilities. They had to have a fine understanding, a quick wit, and a rich cultural background. Due to these qualities, Reis Kutaps were promoted to the more senior position of Nişancı and even the Grand Viziership. Grand Vizier Kokorage Pasha, who was an intellectual, a poet, and a great statesman, is a prominent example. With the transfer to the Babi Ali, the Sublime Porte, position of the Reis Kutap gains more significance, and the office of Reis Kutap becomes one of the three most important civil servants of the Sublime Porte. Reis Kutaps were already represented in the delegations during the treaty negotiations between the states. However, Reis Kutap Rami Mehmet Efendi served as the chief negotiator in the Treaty of Kolowitz for the first time.
Those who cannot see beyond the surface were incapable of seeing the rank of that wise.
The microscopes magnifying the visible were incapable of knowing his position as the center of wisdom. In this couplet, the poet Naila Kadim emphasizes the wisdom of Sari Abdullah Effendi, one of the 17th century Reis Kutaps, with the phrase, center of wisdom. The music you are listening to is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's third part of the Piano Sonata No. 11 in A major, Ronda alla Turca, as it is known, Turkish March. In the 18th century, when Mozart composed this work, there was a feeling of curiosity and admiration for the Ottoman Empire in the West. In Europe, a trend called Turkery, centered on Ottoman culture and art style, was dominant. The Ottoman Empire, on the other hand, required to closely monitor the changes in Europe during this period, when its military and economic power began to weaken. For this reason, it was decided to send embassy delegations in 1720. 28 Mehmed Çelebi, who was sent to Paris, is the first of those ambassadors, also known as the Extraordinary Ambassador. Mehmet Çelebi, who traveled to France with a large delegation in 1721, wrote down his experiences in his Seferetname. Mehmet Çelebi took his nickname 28 from the 28th Battalion of Janissary Corps he was a member of. While going to France, he took his 14-year-old son Said with him. Çelebi puts into record his observations in his Seferetname as follows.
While sailing through the canal, the enthusiasm of the people to watch us was at such a level that they came from places of 4 or 5 hour distances and watched us by the river, and some of them fell into the water while trying to get ahead of each other.
Mehmet Said Efendi, son of 28 Mehmet Çelebi, who would rise to the position of ambassador and grand vizier in the following years, established the first printing house, which he saw and was impressed by in his visit to France in Istanbul in 1727, together with Ibrahim Müteferrika. The European states, which willingly wanted to follow closely the developments in the Ottoman Empire, kept permanent ambassadors in Istanbul since the 15th century. The Ottoman Empire protects their life and property by providing eman, a kind of permit document, to the ambassadors and foreign merchants within its borders. In addition, all expenses of ambassadors and delegations from accommodation to clothing are covered by the state. Due to the need to follow and influence the changing balance of power in Europe from the 18th century onwards, the issue of opening permanent embassies in some countries came to a fore. During this period, Sultan Selim III initiated the Nizam Jadid movement, inspired by the Servetfanames of Ahmet Resmi Efendi and Ebu Bekir Ratib Efendi, who were sent to Vienna as extraordinary ambassadors. Rizal Kutup Mehmed Rasid Efendi, with his successful missions between 1788 and 1791, won the appreciation of Sultan Selim III. Therefore, the Sultan made Mehmed Rashid Effendi, who had innovative views, the key person in the Nazim Chedid reforms. One of the reforms implemented during the term of Mehmed Rashid Effendi as Rizal Kutup was the termination of the state's reimbursement of the expenses of foreign ambassadors. Another innovation is the decision to open permanent embassies in important centres. Mehmet Rashid Effendi holds a meeting with the English ambassador to discuss the issue and explains why the Ottoman was too late to open embassies.
I wonder why the Sublime State has not paid attention to this issue until now and has not sent ambassadors worldwide. I believe it was due to other problems, for every issue awaits its time. Now it is the right time.
Thus, the first of the 4 permanent embassies opened during the period of Mehmet Rashid Effendi became operational in London in 1793. Yusuf Aga Effendi is appointed as the permanent ambassador. London is followed by Berlin, Vienna, and Paris in order. The charge d'affaires period, when the Phanariote Greeks were appointed as acting ambassadors due to the shortcomings encountered in Western languages, ended with the Greek revolt. In 1821, the Sublime Porte, Abi Ali Translation Office, was established and began functioning under Rizal Kutup to train civil servants in foreign languages for an effective diplomacy. This office gradually becomes more important and starts training bureaucrats who would become influential in the future. It is known that Turan Husnu Pasha, who would later become the Prime Minister of Albania, was educated in this office, and James Redhouse, the founder of Redhouse Dictionaries, was teaching here.
He was like the flow of Tigris and Euphrates in his temperament and speech.
In this couplet, Shaish Nivai resembles the flow of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to the beautiful temperament and dignified sermon of Hamza Pasha, one of the 16th century Rizal Kutups. One of the most important moments in Ottoman diplomacy is March 11, 1836. On this date, Sultan Mahmud II orders the establishment of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to replace the office of Rizal Kutup. Thus, it becomes possible for diplomatic activities to gain a more institutional structure. The Ottoman Empire implements a balanced policy in its foreign relations in this period when its military power is weakened and reform steps are being taken in every field, from the army to the economy. Statesmen such as Mustafa Rashid Pasha, Mehmet Emin Ali Pasha, and Kashanje Fout Pasha, who rose to the rank of Grand Vizier after having served as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, became the names that led the transformation of the Ottoman Empire with the Gulani and Reform Edicts. During the Congress's period, when the need to follow the world in diplomacy increased, the representations abroad also expanded. The number of consulates, which were established as 16 centres following the establishments of permanent embassies, increased further during the reign of Sultan Abdul Hamid II and reached 228 in 1909. The internal and external policies of the Republic will be distinguished also in the future, in dignity and strength, by directing and intensifying the powers of the Turkish nation towards its welfare and development. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. The Republic of Turkey, which took its place as a respected member of the international community with the Treaty of Lausanne, strengthened this position by becoming a member of the League of Nations, the forerunner of the United Nations in 1932. While the rechanting accounts of the First World War caused by the colonial appetite was dragging the whole world into a disastrous war for the second time, Turkey led the establishment of the Balkan Entente in 1934 and the Sadabad Pact in 1937 in order to make peace prevail in the surrounding regions, defending world peace, and became a country that secures stability. After World War II, our close vicinity becomes the world's most activated region. Turkey, a front country during the Cold War, takes its place in prominent international organizations such as the Council of Europe, NATO, and OSCE. Turkey sets the European Union's full membership as a target. In this period, Turkey does not hesitate to protect its national interests in Cyprus. After the collapse of the Soviet Union and the transition to a multipolar world order, Turkey continues to be an element of stability while the Balkans, the Caucasus, and the Middle East face crises. Turkey takes new initiatives in Africa, Latin America, and Asia in recent years. Turkey also achieves success in mediation, crisis management, and humanitarian aid. Holding high a vision of bright future with centuries of experience and confidence of its deep-rooted past, the Turkish Foreign Ministry is among the top 5 countries with the largest diplomatic representation network in the world, with its foreign missions totaling 257. With its consular units abroad and its call center, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is always alongside its citizens on a 24-hour basis. While representing our flag and nation away from their homeland, our diplomats and their families have been the targets of terrorist attacks. We commemorate all our martyred diplomats and their families with respect and gratitude.
Bugün Cumhuriyetimizin 10. yılını doldurdu. En büyük bayramdır. Kutlu olsun.
The Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs continues to deliver standing achievements in line with the guiding principle of Atatürk, the founder of our republic. Peace at home, peace in the world. Today, Turkish diplomacy, which hosts regional and global summits, sets the bar high in the centennial of the republic. As our president, H.E. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, emphasizes, Turkey is a diplomatic power which provides solutions to problems, either as a mediator or a facilitator, whose views are sought after and proposals taken into consideration in the international arena, and a country that strongly defends its legitimate rights and interests in every field with an honorable, patient, determined, and prudent attitude.